And how unfair is it that a Wall Street money manager making $50 million a year would pay a lower percentage of his income in taxes than a teacher or a nurse or a truck driver right here in South Bend makes less than $50,000? And we need a 21st century trade policy, because what we had in the 20th century no longer works in the 21st century. I have said that we will renegotiate NAFTA. We will have core labor and environmental standards that will be enforceable, because anytime we do business with someone else, we should try to make it a win-win. You sell something, you buy something, and we both should be satisfied. But what has been happening with our trade agreements is that we open up our markets and nobody else opens up theirs as broadly and widely as we do. I'm finished with that. As your president, I'm going to say I believe in trade, but let's make sure we do have a level playing field where when we trade with you, you are going to follow the same rules and have the same beliefs about what we're trying to accomplish. Last night, Evan and I were at a steelworkers hall in East Chicago talking to a group of steelworkers. And they're obviously and rightly concerned about trade, just like our auto workers are, just like most people who work hard for a living are. I don't think it's an indication that anything's wrong with people who worry about trade. What's wrong is our trade policies, and we need a president who's going to fix them. And so what we will do is get tough on China. They manipulate their currency. They don't follow the rules they agreed to follow. But it's not just China. Country after country subsidizes through lower energy prices, through helping to build facilities, helping to support wages. They subsidize companies that then compete with our companies. That's no longer going to continue when I'm president. We're going to take a hard look at every subsidy, every benefit, every giveaway, and we're going to say we are going to have the same rules and we will follow them. We're also not just going to play defense. We're going to play offense. We're going to start creating more jobs again. As Evan pointed out, the 1990s were good economically for America. We saw the creation of more than 22 million new jobs, and more people were lifted out of poverty than at any time in our country's recent history. And not only that, we ended up with a balanced budget and a surplus. We were on the right track. If we had continued on that track, we would have had the resources to fix Social Security for the rest of this century, to fix Medicare so that we don't keep raising the costs to patients and lowering the reimbursement to doctors and hospitals. We would have been well prepared for the future. President Bush came in, had a different set of ideas. And we are living with the consequences. That balanced budget and surplus, gone. We were on a way to a $5.6 trillion surplus. Now we have a $9 trillion debt. We're living on borrowed money every single day. One of the reasons why this administration has been unwilling to get tough on China is because they don't know how to get tough on our banker. Because they have to hope that those bankers in Beijing working for the Chinese government get up every day and keep buying our debt. The debt that George Bush created by waging a war he wouldn't pay for, and by giving tax cuts to people making millions and millions of dollars, and he wouldn't pay for that either. So the net result is we are in debt because of those two policies of George Bush. Well, I'm going to end the war in Iraq, bring that money back home, as well as our troops back home. And we're going to start investing in America again. And we're going to invest in clean, renewable energy jobs, the kind of jobs that you can do right here in South Bend and they can't be outsourced. I mean, if you've got people, and I met an electrical worker from the IBEW as I came in, if you've got people who are installing solar panels on rooftops, you can't outsource that job. If you've got people making wind turbines that have to be installed near where they're manufactured, you can't outsource that job. If you've got Indiana farmers producing the biofuels that then are going to be refined and distributed right by where they are produced, you can't outsource that job. If you're going to use geothermal, if you're going to try to move toward clean coal, these are the kinds of jobs that will make us richer and safer and more secure, good for our economy, good for our security, and good for our environment. So I'm going to create a strategic energy fund that I will fund by taking the tax subsidies away from the oil companies. They do not need your money to make a huge profit. Oh, the poor oil companies. You know, back in 2005, we had a vote on an energy bill. It was the Dick Cheney energy bill. Billions of more dollars for the oil companies. When the price of oil was going up, when they were making record profits, oh, we had to give them more of your money. Well, this is one of the big differences in this campaign. I voted against it. My opponent voted for it. Because I don't believe we ought to be subsidizing fossil fuels, subsidizing the oil companies that already make billions of dollars of profit. So we're going to put that money to work with clean renewable energy for not only fueling our vehicles, but also producing our electricity. Now, I know we're not going to do any of this until the two oil men leave the White House, but as soon as they do, we will be ready to move into a new energy future. We're also going to create jobs by putting our building trade and construction workers back to work. We'll have a Build America program. In addition to the 5 million jobs that I predict we can make through clean energy, we can put at least 3 million people to work repairing and building roads and bridges and tunnels and water systems and mass transit and, yes, AmeriCorps. And so we're going to do that by issuing bonds like we did during World War II. You know, during World War II, I bet some of you may remember, people bought bonds that then fueled our war industry that helped us win the Second World War. I think a lot of Americans would buy bonds to help build America again and put millions of Americans to work. And we will, once again, invest in health research and other scientific research, because right now we're cutting the National Institutes of Health, the National Cancer Institute, so many people with so many different diseases who are suffering, and we're on the brink of a lot of breakthroughs. And we can, once again, be investing in health care so that people will know that if there is a new treatment, that it will be available to them. That not only puts America in the world, but in order for that to be moral and fair, it has to be done ethically, and the results have to be available to everyone. That's why we must have a universal health care system that leaves not a single American out. As a senator, I spend a lot of my time arguing with insurance companies, trying to find health care for people without insurance, because it's heartbreaking. I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience in your life or know someone who's had it. But go to an emergency room some night when you are not sick and you're not injured, and just look. So many people are there who shouldn't be in an emergency room, but they have nowhere else to go. And the doctors and the nurses do their very best to take care of them. And they eventually do get taken care of, but oftentimes they're a lot sicker than they would have been if they'd had preventive health care. And when they are taken care of and they can't pay the bill, because remember, these are the people, they don't have Medicaid, they don't have insurance, they don't have Medicare, so there's no money to pay. You know, maybe they will be forced into bankruptcy, maybe they will lose their home, but you will also, those of us who are insured, pay for it. Everybody who has a health insurance policy pays a hidden tax of $900 to help pay for people who have no insurance. Then there are the people with insurance, except when they really need it and the insurance company says no. In some ways, this is the most heartbreaking, because these are people who paid their premiums. I had a man call me from northern New York one time who said, "Senator, what am I doing wrong? I've always worked for the same employer. I've always paid my premiums. I've never needed much because my family's been healthy, but recently my son was diagnosed with a very rare illness. I didn't think anything of it. I called the insurance company after we saw the doctors and got the diagnosis, and the doctor said there's one place in the country that knows how to treat this. It's a fast-moving disease that deteriorates brain function, so you have to have the surgery soon. And I told the insurance company, and they said they wouldn't pay for it. It was a $400,000 operation. So I argue with the insurance company, and my staff argues, and we eventually get them to the point where they're afraid I'll embarrass them. So, which I would.